Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Trump's deportation secret weapon, the local sheriffs. The country is about to go through something that could be traumatic, or it could be affirming for people that were so frustrated by the prior administration bringing in so many millions of people from multiple foreign countries and allowing them to settle here without legal immigration status. This is a constitutional crisis. We can't have tens of millions of people invited into the country or allowed to stay in the country who don't have equal rights as citizens. It doesn't mean we can give everyone citizenship. It doesn't mean we can give people a path to citizenship. It means we have to go back to the rule of law. But it doesn't seem appropriate that you don't have voting rights for people who are in the country. You're going to create a whole second-class group of people that don't have the same rights as other people. If you normalize this, if you say, you know what, we're going to just forget the laws. We're going to allow anyone who wants to come to the country to be in the country, and we're going to subsidize them. Well, it's not legal. So it's not something the executive branch, it's not something the president that they did during the prior administration can actually do. They just did it and got away with it for as long as they could. But the results have not been good. And we do have to have a rule of law so that we have a social contract between the people in the country and the government in the country. Everyone should be treated fairly, everyone should be treated equally, and everyone should operate under the rule of law. Now, Trump has multiple plans, and he has some expert people to help him deal with this illegal immigration problem. The Wall Street Journal just put out a really interesting article. From the Wall Street Journal, the local sheriffs gearing up to help Trump carry out mass deportations. Trump plans to empower local sheriffs to assist with mass deportations, incentivizing cooperation with financial rewards and threatening financial consequences for noncompliance. He's also going to revive the 287G program. The Trump administration will expand the controversial 287G program, which allows local law enforcement to act on behalf of ICE in questioning and detaining individuals on immigration violations. And we know that the focus for this is not somebody's abuela, which is Spanish for grandma. It's not a child, unless we're trying to rescue that child. In fact, Tom Homan plans a PR war over illegal immigration and plans to do a PR campaign and talk about how he's going to rescue, and I'm sure he'll rescue some of them, the missing 300,000 some children who were brought into the country illegally and then passed around the country that the federal government actually lost track of. And that's another story. But it's important because there are going to be a lot of negative stories about enforcing the rule of law. Sheriffs, particularly those in Republican-controlled areas, are prepared to serve as force multipliers for ICE, leveraging their control over county jails and wide geographic reach. Trump's transition team is already exploring the use of short-term detention centers near Democrat-run cities where undocumented immigrants are concentrated. Immigrant advocates warn that this approach is spreading fear within immigrant communities, with concerns about profiling and the erosion of trust between law enforcement and immigrant populations. And this is not funny, this is serious. Of course, if someone's in the country illegally and they were flown in, our federal government has flown in at least hundreds of thousands of people on planes. They've essentially invited them to be in this country. People picked up their whole lives and said, sure, I'll come to the United States. It's a great opportunity. And now they have to wonder, am I going to get thrown out of the country? Of course, the Trump administration has said, look, we're focusing on people who are known dangerous people, as well as people who have been already through the system, where the courts have said, supposedly there's anywhere from 1.2 million people to 1.5 million people, but the courts have adjudicated and said, no, you don't have a right to be here based on asylum. You do need to go home to your home country. They are going to look for those people, and particularly in states where they don't want to cooperate with ICE. It is going to wind up ensnaring people that otherwise would not be picked up and then deported. Why is that? Because if they have to do workplace raids, or workplace enforcement actions, whatever they prefer to call them, but they are what we think of as raids. And they go into one manufacturing plant or one meat processing plant or another place that they think that they have access to someone, and they catch other people who are there illegally. They will probably get picked up and they could very well be deported. And if you do get deported because you've been in the country illegally and you make the federal government go to the expense and the trouble of getting you into a deportation detention center and then put on a plane and then return to your home country, you could get in trouble to the extent where you're not going to get arrested, but it could take years to get back into the United States. If you were ordered to leave the country and then they catch you, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years until you're allowed to come back into the country. And then if you come back to the country, even though you've been deported from the country because you were told to leave the country and you didn't, and they had to go find you, and then you try to come back, even if you have children here, you could be imprisoned for 5 years or up to even 20 years if you were deported over an aggravated felony. I'm not an immigration law expert. This is a major problem. But the people that told people they could just come to the country and they could stay forever and they would be given extra benefits and they never had to worry about their immigration status, that was not true. Unlike police chiefs, sheriffs are elected and typically have broad autonomy, making them an important part of Trump's deportation strategy. Because Trump, he's not going to send the military. There's been discussion of using the military to deal with immigration problems. The military is not being discussed that they're going to send tanks down people's streets and then have people with guns or people in fatigues knocking on people's doors saying, hey, I'm with the military. You need to come with me right now. They're not doing that. They're not attempting to do that. The military will very likely be helping Trump. They already do get employed to help with immigration issues directly on the border. And many administrations have already done that. But they're talking about using the military now for logistics purposes, planning things, helping to build facilities if needed, things that don't directly have the military interacting with the public. That's my best understanding of it. So I would not expect there's going to be military in the streets. There aren't. But this is a big deal because it's clearly a way that ICE, without increasing its budget, without doing a lot of additional hiring, will be able to multiply their efforts and get access to people, especially where there are local sheriffs that want to cooperate. While some local sheriffs fully support Trump's plans, others, particularly in Democrat-leaning states, are resisting cooperation with ICE, citing legal and ethical concerns. We've also heard some reporting that out of the state of California, the governor has been threatening sheriffs that if you want to cooperate with the federal government, if you want to cooperate with Trump, we will fire you and take away your pensions. That's pretty aggressive. We'll see how that turns out. A group of sheriffs aligned with the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association is promoting aggressive immigration enforcement, claiming it protects citizens from federal overreach. Local immigrant communities, particularly those with undocumented members, illegal aliens, are experiencing heightened anxiety and changing behaviors, such as avoiding public spaces due to the anticipated policy changes. And you don't want to hear about people living in fear in the United States. If people are here illegally, it's difficult to feel comfortable. It ought to be difficult to feel comfortable because you don't have a legal status to be in the country. We've also seen articles where Haitians, even though they're under temporary protected status, have begun to leave the United States. From CBS News, fearing deportation, some Haitian immigrants are leaving Springfield, Ohio. And of course, that was the story about people from Haiti eating cats and dogs and the very popular Trump song. I don't know if they were eating cats and dogs or not. I know that if they took a population of 52,000 people in Springfield, Ohio, which is what it was, and then the federal government said, we're going to bring in another 20,000 immigrants. We'll give them legal status, at least temporarily, but we'll bring in 20,000 immigrants to be in your community and work in your community. And they didn't even come up with a plan of how that was going to be successful for the entire community, not just the TPS people, but also the people that have been living there. Employers wanted those people to come in. They wanted to fill jobs. They wanted to also fill jobs and obviously not have to face a very competitive working environment where they'd have to pay a lot of money. The employers claim that they were paying the same to the Haitian people that they would have paid to just about anyone, and possibly that's true, but they were also receiving federal subsidies. It was also reported that people that came in under protected status were handed driver's licenses and were allowed to just drive cars, causing accident after accident after accident, one of which took a child's life. As part of the federal government supporting those people, it was also reported that multiple people lived in the same house in violation of codes, where you can't have like 4 families living in a 1-family environment. I don't know all of those details. I'm no expert on all of that. But it's certainly clear to say that if you live in a community of 52,000 people and you bring in 20,000 people from any other different country, any other different setting, and you're not going to help that town to even acclimate in any way, I don't understand how it was even conceivable for that to happen. And I think there have been a couple of stories like that that came out. Springfield, Ohio wasn't the only city that the federal government did that in. It was only a few, 3 or 4 that I heard of. I heard about it happening in Pennsylvania. I heard about it happening in Indiana. And I was pretty shocked because it makes you think like, well, are you serious? You're really going to do this? And yeah, they're really going to do it. Of course, that's completely unsustainable, and it's one of the reasons that Trump won. Even just providing local services to the people that live in the area, the TPS people, and the people that were already living in the city, how could you possibly do that? They know they can't do that. So to pick a population and say, okay, well, how many people live there? 50,000? All right, we'll just say send 40, 50% more people, and then now you have to support those people somehow. It's just ridiculous. Coming from the Wall Street Journal, local sheriffs gearing up to help Trump carry out mass deportations. Trump plans to give county authorities more power in deportation matters, with rewards for jurisdictions that cooperate and retribution for those that don't. Quote, I'm willing to support the president 100%, said Jenkins, a 68-year-old man with a gray buzz cut. Quote, I want to do more within the law. That prospect is spreading fear in immigrant circles, according to advocates, and drawing mixed reviews from residents in this growing county, which backed Democrats in the last 2 presidential elections. But Jenkins, once dubbed among the nation's top toughest immigration sheriffs by Fox News, sees Trump's imminent return to the White House as a mandate for a more assertive approach. For local sheriffs who have long talked tough on immigration, their time has come. While the incoming Trump administration has spoken about increasing the number of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement employees and using the military to turbocharge deportations, one thing is clear. The federal government needs help from local law enforcement in cities and states far from the border to detain and remove people en masse. Trump's transition team is already pursuing new spaces they can repurpose into short-term detention centers near large Democratic-run cities where most immigrants in the country illegally live. To leverage legions of deputies, the Trump team is aiming for a historic expansion of a federal program that gives sheriffs and other agencies certain ICE powers. Under that program, known as 287G, the team aims to revive a dormant and controversial task force model, which until 2012 allowed officers from participating local agencies during their routine duties to question and arrest suspected non-citizens in the community on immigration violations. And that would be a game changer. Tom Homan, the administrator's incoming border czar and a longtime ICE official, favors the model because it leads to more frequent and visible arrests, which he believes could act as a deterrent to would-be migrants thinking of coming to the U.S., according to people close to Homan. Under one plan being considered, billions of federal dollars that currently reimburse nonprofits and cities for helping illegal aliens at the border would be redirected to local law enforcement agencies that turn illegal aliens over to ICE. Trump's plans remain unclear, and some point to practical limits on how many people could be deported, given an estimated 11 million illegal aliens entered the country. though who knows how many that actually is. It could be as much as 30 million people, who knows? Trump's transition team officials, including Homan, have publicly started to narrow the effort's scope. Trump promised to deport as many as 20 million people, to focus primarily on immigrants with criminal histories. Of course, you're going to start with dangerous people to generate momentum. But Homan has repeatedly said if you've been through the legal system, and the legal system has said you need to go home to your home country, and you haven't gone, then yes, you're going to be an early target on the list, at least according to Tom Homan, the border czar. Across America, sheriffs, mostly elected in partisan races, unlike political chiefs, have long been viewed as more political than police and as uniquely powerful because they operate jails and often have a vast geographic reach into unincorporated areas outside municipal lines. As president, Trump granted a pardon to Joe Arpaio, a former Arizona sheriff who built a national reputation as an immigration hardliner before he was convicted of disobeying a court order to halt the raids that brought him fame. Since the November 5th election, some sheriffs have emphasized they aren't in sync with Trump and say linking arms with ICE erodes trust with immigrants and drains resources. In Los Angeles, which passed a sanctuary city ordinance, the county sheriff last week emphasized that his officers don't and won't ask citizens about their immigration status. Bristol County Sheriff publicly said he would reply, quote, not interested if ICE asked him to hold undocumented immigrants, illegal aliens, with a criminal history at a former federal detention facility in his county. Adding to the complexity, a patchwork of state laws means sheriffs in some blue cities can't legally cooperate with ICE, while those in some red states must, according to Jonathan Thompson, the executive director of the nonpartisan National Sheriff's Association, whose members include about 70% of the country's 3,000 sheriffs. In North Carolina, for instance, Republican lawmakers last week overrode Democratic Governor Roy Cooper's veto of a bill that would require sheriffs to work with ICE on certain detentions. In Oregon, by contrast, local and state agencies can't comply with federal immigration requests absent a judicial subpoena. Trump's advisors intend to penalize so-called sanctuary cities by cutting off what could amount to billions of dollars in federal grants to them. Thompson said his group plans to meet soon with members of Trump's transition team, hoping to learn more about the scope, cost, and duration of his deportation plan. Thompson says it's clear the influx of illegal aliens in recent years has, quote, created an enormous amount of pressure on local law enforcement, state law enforcement agencies across the country, not just along the border. It's created havoc in many, many communities. He added state and local law enforcement, and in particular sheriffs, will be critical to Trump's plans. Many conservative sheriffs across the U.S., from Texas to California to redder swaths of the Northeast, now stand ready to be force multipliers for ICE and its 6,000 agents. Asked if he supported mass deportation, GOP Sheriff Richard Jones of Butler County, Ohio, replied, quote, sure I do. And so do the American people. People are tired of this. Jones, who spoke at a Trump rally, said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that during the Biden administration, everything was shut down when it came to immigration enforcement. Now, Jones said, we're going to be in business again. He's gearing up to resume housing ICE detainees and estimates he could hold up to 150 today. But we have space available, and they're going to need space from day one. He added he wants to revive another aspect of his pre-Biden closer working relationship with immigration officials. Quote, we actually had ICE agents that had offices here, and we had hearings with immigration court for deportation, he said. And we still have this setup. We're getting that back reinstated here. When Obama left office in 2017, 34 agencies took part in ICE's partnership program, according to a 2022 ACLU report. That grew to over 140 by the time of the report. It cited Trump's recruitment efforts and what it called racist and anti-immigrant views by many participating sheriffs. Today, ICE says the 287G program has 135 partner agencies in 21 states. Most are sheriffs who, unlike police chiefs, typically have no boss beside voters. Currently, their scope is limited to jails, for example, identifying and holding undocumented jail inmates for ICE. But that could expand if Trump brings back the task force model and makes good on a goal to sign up more jurisdictions. Quote, you should expect to see a historic number of new 287G agreements, according to a person involved in the transition. Quote, at the end of the day, the Trump administration is going to want to be empowering sheriffs, said Noreen Shah, Deputy Director of Government Affairs at the American Civil Liberties Union. The pro-Trump sheriffs eager to help with deportations include self-described constitutional sheriffs who believe they have a duty to protect citizens against federal overreach. Local sheriffs who are only accountable to their sworn oaths and the people that voted for them are going to be a big part of solving this problem. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.